just going back a little bit, because you mentioned Goodyear Welt and Stitchdown, and I know you guys do both, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I mean, I have a pretty good idea, but I'm not sure I fully understand the challenges of making Stitchdown over making Goodyear Welt, because there's a lot more options in terms of factories and product out there that are Goodyear welted and not so many that are Stitchdown. So why do you think that is?
There's just more work in Stitchdown because unless you're actually hand lasting Goodyear Welt, like either a bed laster or literally by hand, it's not. At some point with a Stitchdown product, you nail in the heel unless it's 360, then it's stitched all the way around. So then it just be the lining or something would be glued. The fore part would be glued. The lining would be glued under. Anyways, I guess the side lasting of that shoe is all done by hand. So there's more handwork in it. And what's complicated about the Stitchdown is that you side last it and then you have to cut and turn out the leather. So if the leather fiber is not fucking strong and you turn it out and you put the midsole on it and you stitch it, I mean, it can tear, and like, for example, cordovan, it's strong, but if you fucking slice it and you pull it, you can shred that fucker right through. Just that's the way it is. So that's the problem with Stitchdown shell cordovan, is that I've cut it, I've turned it, and if the flex point, if that cut line is not in line with, if it's too far forward where the flex point is, then I'm at the mercy of it could actually rip. It doesn't, because we've been doing it long enough. But yeah, I'm not going to say it's harder. The other thing is, like, if I'm doing a Stitchdown and I stitch the first row of stitching and it's clean, and I do the second row of stitching and it's messed up, you're going to see that. With a welt, I can strip the sole off it and I can put a new welt on it. I can't do that with Stitchdown because that stitched out part is the actual vamp. So I would have to replace the vamp. So all of a sudden, to fix the stitch, I have to cut another shell. So I'm now, X amount of money out that is fucked up because of the stitching. So there's just, the complexity of it is way harder than Goodyear Welt. I'm not saying Goodyear Welt's not hard, but the fact that you've got 2 rows of stitching into the actual vamp upper, that you have literally no room for error, especially when we're doing what we're doing now, which is on a British high-speed machine. The stitch per inch, I think, is like 9 or 10. So if you use an old logging boot machine, Rapid E, it's like 4 stitches per inch. I mean, fuck, anybody can control that because it's just, But with the high speed, there's a skill there. So yeah, the margin for error is a lot greater with the Stitchdown. And I don't think people really know that or can appreciate it because they're looking at it aesthetically, and rightfully so. Why should they fucking care? They should expect it to be perfect. But in actuality, it's impossible because, like, it's just, the construction type is not meant, it's really not meant for a high level product because it's built for function. It just so happens that it's got 2 rows of stitching. And if you're expecting, stitching by hand, maybe you can get them perfect every time. I mean, and then if you want to resole it and you're not going to replace the vamp, how can you guarantee that you're going to hit that same hole? On a welt, you could strip the welt off and just put a new one on. I mean, it's the strip of leather doesn't cost anything,
Yeah, I think that's lost on, or people look at the 2 constructions side by side and maybe think that they're more similar than they are. And there's similarities, but I think that I was hoping you were going to say that you really only have one shot at getting those 2 lines straight. Because if it's not right, then you've got holes in the leather, and what do you got to start over? Yeah, it's
I mean, you can't to do what we do at a high level without having like a practice factor or something. I mean, you can't learn on this stuff. There's just no room for error, unfortunately. So like, it's very hard to bring somebody in to learn on it when it might be a seconds, because the stitches might be out.